At 9:17 a.m. on January 22, 1943, Second Lieutenant John George crouched in the ruins of a Japanese bunker west of Point Cruz. The morning air was thick, humid, and carrying the scent of decay, sweat, and gunpowder. Through the broken concrete, George's eyes were fixed on a banyan tree 240 yards away. This was no ordinary rifle he held. It was the culmination of dreams, skill, and patience. A weapon that had been mocked by officers and platoon leaders alike. A mail-order toy, your little sweetheart, they called it. George was 27 years old, a former Illinois state shooting champion, and until now had 0 confirmed kills. His Winchester Model 70, equipped with a Lyman Alaskan scope and Griffin and Howe mount, had arrived only weeks before, after being delayed in a Tennessee warehouse during the voyage to Guadalcanal. While his comrades polished their Garands, he had waited, imagining the rifle in his hands. The rifle weighed 9 pounds, the scope an additional 12 ounces. It was a bolt action with 5 rounds, unlike the semi-automatic Garand issued to every other man in the battalion. Captain Morris had ordered him to leave the sporting rifle behind and carry a standard weapon. George ignored the order.
The 132nd Infantry had relieved the Marines at Guadalcanal in late December 1942. The Marines had fought for Henderson Field, held it, but had not cleared Mount Austin nor the coastal groves west of the Guadalcanal River. Mount Austin, 1,514 feet tall, was fortified with 500 Japanese soldiers and 47 bunkers. George's battalion had attacked on December 17th, fighting for 16 days, losing 34 men killed and 279 wounded. By January 2nd, the western slope was captured. George had fired his Winchester exactly 0 times in combat. The jungle near Point Cruz was different. No bunkers, no fixed positions. Japanese soldiers had retreated west from Henderson Field, hiding in the massive banyan trees. Some were snipers. They knew the jungle intimately, and they knew how to wait. From January 19th to 21st, snipers killed multiple men from the 132nd Infantry. The battalion commander realized he needed a marksman who could counter them. George's credentials were undeniable. Illinois state champion at 1,000 yards, 6-inch groups at 600 yards with iron sights, unmatched precision. The commander gave him until morning to prove it. At dawn, on January 22nd, George moved into position in the ruins of a captured Japanese bunker overlooking the coconut groves. He had no spotter, no radio man, only his rifle, a canteen, and 60 rounds in stripper clips. The Lyman Alaskan offered 2.5x magnification, barely enough, but enough to see movement the naked eye would miss.
The Winchester kicked into his shoulder. The sniper jerked and fell, tumbling 90 feet to the jungle floor. George chambered another round. At 9:43, he spotted the second sniper moving down a trunk 60 yards north of the first. He led the movement, fired, and the second sniper fell. At 11:21, a Japanese bullet struck 6 inches from his head, sending dirt flying. George rolled into the bunker wall, waited, then spotted the third sniper. At 11:38, the shot rang out. Another body fell silently through the trees. By noon, George had killed 5 snipers. Word spread. Men who had mocked his mail-order rifle now watched in awe. But George refused spectators. Attention meant danger. January 23rd dawned with heavy tropical rain. Visibility was poor, and the jungle floor was mud. George waited for the storm to pass. By 08:45, he resumed his watch. At 9:12, he spotted another sniper, farther than yesterday, 290 yards. A precise shot brought the 6th kill. The Japanese responded with mortars, triangulating his position. George abandoned his ruined bunker, sprinted along the tree line, and dove into a shell crater. By afternoon, he had killed his 7th and 8th snipers. One had climbed 94 feet high. His silhouette against the sky betrayed him. Captain Morris sent a runner. 9 hours of continuous sniper operations, 8 confirmed kills, 12 rounds fired, 4 misses. George cleaned his rifle that night and thought through the mathematics. 11 snipers total, 8 now dead, 3 remaining. The survivors were the elite, the best, the ones who had outlasted all others, and now they knew exactly what rifle he carried.
By 3 a.m., George gave up on sleep, sitting in his tent with the rifle across his lap. Every sound, every shifting shadow, every rustle of leaves could be death. The remaining snipers were cunning, the most experienced and the most dangerous. He had 5 rounds loaded, every one a potential life or death decision. January 24th. Dawn broke slowly, the forest dripping, leaves heavy with rain. Visibility returned at 08:15. George scanned the banyans. At 9:12, he spotted the first sniper of the day, farther than yesterday, 290 yards. He fired. The sniper fell. The last 3 snipers were now aware, hiding in thick foliage, moving minimally, calculating every risk. George adapted, moving positions, watching for the slightest hint of movement. By late morning, 2 more snipers were down, one at 10:15, the other a few minutes later. Only the final pair remained. The last 2 were the elite, survivors, expert marksmen. The final 2 snipers occupied the highest trees, thickest foliage, most concealed positions. One was 90 feet up, the other slightly lower. George settled into a new firing position, adjusted for distance and wind, heart steady, breath controlled. At 12:40, the first shot rang out. The 9th sniper was dead. At 1:05 p.m., George squeezed the trigger again. The final sniper fell silently, ending the 4-day ordeal. All 11 snipers operating in the Point Cruz groves were now dead. George had fired just under 20 rounds. His precision, patience, and nerve had turned a mocked civilian rifle into a lethal weapon against elite enemies. The jungle was quiet now, except for distant artillery and the hum of insects. Fallen snipers, broken branches, and the flattened jungle floor were a testament to the deadly duel. George cleaned his rifle, exhausted but resolute. Captain Morris approached, no mockery in his voice. "You did it, George. Every single one." George looked at the rifle, the weapon that had been doubted, laughed at, and called a toy. "It wasn't a toy, sir. It was survival, precision, and discipline." The mail-order rifle, once a joke, had become a legend. The 132nd Infantry Regiment owed lives to one man who had mastered focus, patience, and accuracy in a jungle where death lurked in every shadow.